Alex stood in the middle of the crowded hall, surrounded by alien species he had never seen before. He had always been part of the human military, but now things were different. Peace had come after years of fighting. Alex was here, on the Daer homeworld, for a cultural exchange between humans and the Daer. The two species had fought hard for peace, but now it was time to celebrate it. He looked around at the gathering. The Daer were tall and thin, with green skin that shimmered under the bright lights of the hall. Their eyes were large and dark, giving them an almost otherworldly look. The humans in the room were quieter, their movements more reserved. Was used to the rigid, disciplined life of a soldier. But here, in the midst of celebration, he felt out of place as he wandered through the hall. He noticed a young alien woman standing near a display of human art. She was not like the others. While most of the Daer held themselves with a cold, distant demeanor, this one looked different. She wore a soft smile and seemed genuinely interested in the human paintings and sculptures around her. Her eyes sparkled as she carefully studied each piece. Alex couldn't help but be drawn to her. He walked up slowly, unsure of what to say. She turned and noticed him, her gaze locking with his. There was a brief moment of silence. "Hello?" Alex said awkwardly, feeling like a stranger in this strange world. The woman smiled, her lips curving up gently. "Hello, human," she replied in a soft voice, her accent delicate but clear. Alex tried to think of something clever to say, but the words didn't come. Instead, he just stood there, looking at her, unsure of how to start a conversation. "See, you're interested in our art?" he finally said, gesturing to the nearby display. Her smile widened and she nodded. "Yes, it's beautiful. You humans have a way of expressing your emotions through colors and shapes that is different from us. I find it fascinating." Alex couldn't help but feel a small spark of admiration. Well, art is how we express what we can't say with words, he said. "That is a nice way to put it," she said thoughtfully, glancing back at the paintings. "But I believe we also have our own ways of expressing emotions, just in different forms." Alex was about to say something else when she suddenly giggled. It was a soft, almost musical sound. Alex raised an eyebrow, curious. "What?" he asked. "You," she said, her voice playful. "You're cute." Alex blinked, caught off guard by her comment. "What?" I asked again, still processing what she had said. She smiled shyly, her eyes lowering for a moment. "Hey, you're cute, human." Alex laughed awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Not more than you," he replied, trying to keep the conversation light. He could feel his cheeks flush slightly. Her eyes brightened at his response. For a moment, she just looked at him, her smile becoming softer. "Thank you," she said quietly, a hint of shyness in her voice. She looked back at the paintings, but now there was a noticeable warmth in her expression, as though something between them had shifted. Alex couldn't stop himself from staring at her. She was beautiful, not just in her appearance, but in the way she carried herself. There was a grace about her, a calmness that seemed to make the world around her slow down. It was the first time since arriving on the Daer homeworld that he felt at ease. "My name is Alex," he said, stepping a little closer. He held out his hand, unsure if this was the right thing to do. The alien woman paused for a moment, then reached out to shake his hand. Her skin was warm, smooth, and slightly shimmering in the light. "I'm Lyra," she said, her voice soft but confident. "Lyra," Alex repeated, liking the sound of it. "Nice to meet you." There was a moment of quiet between them, the noise of the event continuing in the background, but neither of them seemed to notice it. It was as if they were in their own little world, surrounded by the art, the light, and the warmth of their conversation. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be so forward," Lyra said after a while, looking up at him. Her eyes suddenly filled with something a little deeper. I don't meet many humans, and you seem different." Alex smiled, feeling the tension. In his shoulders, ease. "It's okay," he said. "It's nice to meet someone who's not here because of duty or orders. It's nice to meet someone who just... enjoys being here." Lyra nodded, her eyes meeting his again. "Yes," she said. "It's nice to meet you too, Alex." For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stood there looking at each other, both lost in the unspoken connection that was starting to form between them. In that moment, Alex realized that this wasn't just another mission or another diplomatic event. This was something more, something real. The next few days passed in a blur of ceremonies, speeches, and shared cultural exchanges between the humans and the dare. Alex found himself spending more time with Lyra, each moment feeling more natural than the last. They talked about their worlds, their lives, and the challenges they both faced. Though there was always something unspoken between them, quiet understanding that went beyond words. It wasn't long before Alex realized that he had grown attached to Lyra in a way he hadn't expected. There was a warmth in her eyes that made him feel like he wasn't just a soldier on a mission, but someone who truly mattered. And every time she smiled, it was like the world around them disappeared for a brief moment, leaving just the two of them standing in the middle of something much deeper than simple friendship. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Alex and Shisu's, Lyra found themselves walking through the gardens outside the palace. The air was cool, the sky darkening with the first stars of the night. The garden was peaceful, a quiet contrast to the bustling events inside. Alex could feel the weight of the world lifting off his shoulders as he walked beside Lyra, her presence calming him in a way he hadn't anticipated. "It's beautiful here," Alex said, glancing around at the glowing plants and strange, colorful flowers that filled the garden. The Dayer had a deep connection to nature, and their gardens reflected that, with every plant thriving in ways Alex had never seen before. Lyra nodded, her long hair catching the soft breeze. "Yes, it is," she replied, her voice almost wistful. "It's one of the few places where I can truly relax. Sometimes I wish I could just stay here and forget everything else." Alex looked at her, sensing the sadness in her words. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice gentle. Lyra hesitated, her gaze shifting to the ground as though she was considering whether or not to share her thoughts. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet. "It's not easy, you know, being the daughter of someone so powerful. People expect things from me. They expect loyalty to my father, to the Dayer's way of life. But I don't always agree with him. I don't always agree with the way things are." Alex stopped walking, turning to face her. He saw the pain in her eyes, the weight of responsibility that rested on her shoulders. It was the first time she had shown him any hint of vulnerability. It made him want to protect her more than ever. "You don't have to agree with everything," Alex said softly, stepping closer to her. "You're your own person. Lyra, you don't have to carry the burdens of your family if they don't align with what you believe." Lyra looked up at him, her expression softening. For a moment they stood there in silence, the only sound being the soft rustle of the wind in the trees. Then she smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "I wish it were that simple," she said. "But when you're in my position, nothing is simple. Everything I do is watched. Every decision is weighed. I can't just choose to be free." Alex felt a pang of sympathy for her. He had known the weight of responsibility before, but nothing like what she carried. As a soldier, his duty was clear, but it wasn't tied to a family legacy or political power. Lyra, on the other hand, was trapped in a world where every move she made was scrutinized by everyone around her. "You don't deserve that," Alex said, his voice firm. "You deserve to make your own choices, to live your life the way you want." Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time, Alex saw a flicker of hope in her expression. "You make it sound so easy," she said with a small laugh. Maybe one day it will be." They continued walking, the quiet moment between them growing more comfortable. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, and Alex felt a sense of peace that he hadn't experienced in a long time. It was as though for the first time, he wasn't just a soldier on a mission, he was someone who could help, someone who could make a difference. As they reached the edge of the garden, Lyra stopped and turned to face him. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for listening, for understanding." Alex smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Of course," he said. "That's what friends are for, right?" Lyra nodded, but there was something more in her eyes now. It wasn't just gratitude, it was something deeper. Something. Alex wasn't sure he fully understood, but he could feel it in the way she looked at him. He wanted to reach out, to say something, but the words didn't come. Instead, he stood there looking at her, and for a long moment neither of them said anything. It was as if the world around them had disappeared, leaving just the two of them, standing together in that quiet, peaceful space. Then, just as Alex thought the moment might end, Lyra took a small step forward. "Alex," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I ain't." She trailed off, her words getting lost in the cool night air. Before Alex could respond, a sudden noise broke the quiet footsteps approaching quickly from behind them. Lex turned, his instincts kicking in. He saw a group of Dare soldiers, their faces stern and focused, moving quickly through the garden. One of them, a high-ranking officer, locked eyes with Alex, giving him a curt nod before moving on. Lyra stepped back, her expression quickly shifting back to one of neutrality. "I should go," she said softly. "It's not wise for me to be seen too close to you." Alex watched her for a moment, his heart sinking. Lyra wait, but she was already walking away, her steps soft against the ground. Lex stood, still, unsure of what to do next, his mind racing with thoughts of the fragile bond they were building. As Lyra disappeared into the shadows, Alex couldn't help but feel that something had changed between them, something deeper than just friendship. The days that followed were filled with tension. The peace talks between the humans and the Dare were progressing slowly, but something was off. Alex noticed it immediately. Lyra seemed distant. Every time they met, her smiles were more forced, her laughter more hollow. It was as though a wall had gone up between them, and no matter how hard Alex tried, he couldn't break through. He couldn't understand why. They had shared so many honest moments. So why was she pulling away now? The thought weighed heavily on his mind. One afternoon, while Alex was in a meeting with human diplomats, he saw her. Lyra stood in the distance, talking to her father. A powerful Dare politician. He was tall, with a commanding presence, and his cold, calculating eyes never seemed to leave Lyra's face. She looked smaller next to him, almost as if she were shrinking under the weight of his gaze. Alex felt a strange twinge in his chest, but he quickly brushed it off. It wasn't his place to judge. He was just a soldier, here to do his job and keep the peace. After the meeting, Alex wandered out of the hall trying to clear his mind. As he walked through the corridors of the palace, he saw Lyra again. This time, she was alone, standing by a window, staring out at the horizon. The tension in her posture was unmistakable. Without thinking, Alex approached her, his steps echoing. In the silent hall, she turned and saw him. Her expression softened, but the sadness in her eyes was still there. "Lyra," Alex said gently, his voice laced with concern. "What's going on? You've been avoiding me. What happened?" Lyra hesitated, her gaze flickering to the floor. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Alex waited, giving her the time she needed. Finally, she sighed. "I didn't want you to find out this way," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I think you deserve to know." Alex felt his heart skip a beat. "Know what?" Lyra looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and guilt. "My father, he's not just a politician. He's one of the leaders of the Rogue faction that wants to undo the peace talks. He's been working behind the scenes to sabotage everything. I didn't know. I didn't know until recently." Alex stood frozen, his mind struggling to process her words. "But why would he do that?" he asked, his voice shaky. "You're his daughter. You're fighting for peace." Lyra's eyes welled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. "I've tried to talk to him. I've tried to make him see reason, but he won't listen. He believes the Dare need to remain separate from the humans. He doesn't think peace is possible. Wants war." Alex's heart sank. He had known the peace talks were fragile, but this was something entirely different. Lyra's father wasn't just a political obstacle. He was actively working to destroy everything they had fought for. "But you," Alex said, taking a step closer to her, "you're not like him. You want peace, don't you?" Lyra nodded, her voice barely audible. "I do, but I'm caught between two worlds. My loyalty to my father and my loyalty to what's right. If I stand against him, it could mean the end of my place in this society. could lose everything. Alex reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to lose everything. You can still choose your own path. It might be hard, but you have the power to make a difference. Lyra met his gaze, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. But how? I'm just one person. How can I change anything? You're not just one person, Alex said, his voice firm. You're someone who's capable of more than you realize. You don't have to face this alone. For a long moment, they stood there, neither of them speaking. The silence between them was heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that comes when two people truly understand each other. Lyra took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. I don't know what to do, she admitted softly. I can't just stand by and let this happen. I have to try to stop him. Alex smiled gently. Then let's do it together. For the first time in days, a genuine smile appeared. On Lyra's face, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was the first spark of hope Alex had seen in her since they had arrived on the Dare homeworld. I don't know where this will lead, Lyra said, her voice steady now, but I'll fight for what's right, and I'm glad you'll be by my side. Alex nodded. We're in this together. As they stood there, the weight of the situation finally settled in Alex's chest. He had no idea what would happen next, or how the situation with Lyra's father would unfold, but one thing was clear. He wasn't going to back down, not when the stakes were this high, not when it meant the difference between peace and war, and not when it meant standing by Lyra, the person who had become more important to him than he could have ever imagined. The air was thick with tension as Alex and Lyra walked through the palace corridors, their steps echoing softly against the walls. The weight of their conversation hung over them, a constant reminder that everything was at stake. Alex had never imagined that peace could feel so fragile. It wasn't just about human and Dare relations anymore. It was about Lyra's future, her family's loyalty, and the war that seemed to lurk just around the corner. They reached a small, private room where they had met countless times before. Lyra led the way inside, her gaze never leaving the floor. Alex followed, his heart heavy with the knowledge that everything was becoming more complicated by the day. There was no easy way out of this. No simple solution. Lyra finally broke the silence, her voice soft but firm. I can't keep this secret any longer, she said, turning to face Alex. My father is planning something. I don't know all the details yet, but it's bad. He's going to do everything in his power to stop the peace talks. He believes that war is the only way to protect the Dare. He believes that aligning with the humans is a betrayal. Alex's stomach twisted. But you've already told him how you feel, right? You've tried to change his mind? Lyra nodded, her eyes clouded with frustration. I have, but it's not enough. He won't listen. The more I try to stand up to him, the more it feels like I'm losing him. Losing everything I've ever known. Alex felt a pang of sympathy. You're not losing yourself, Lyra. You're doing what's right. And sometimes doing what's right isn't easy. But you don't have to do this alone. Lyra shook her head, her eyes welling with unshed tears. I'm not sure I can keep up the fight. I'm caught between my duty to my people and my own beliefs. If I go against my father now, I risk everything: the future of the peace talks, my family's position in society, everything. Alex took a step toward her, his voice calm but firm. You don't have to choose between your beliefs and your family. You can fight for what's right and still stand by the ones you care about. Lyra looked at him, her gaze softening. Not that simple, Alex. You don't understand. My father's power isn't just about politics. He's influential, not just among the Dare, but among other species as well. He has allies who believe the same things he does. If I oppose him now, I risk everything, not just for me, but for the future of my people. Alex took her hands in his heart aching as he saw the fear in her eyes. Then let's find a way to stop him together. We can expose the truth. We can find a way to make them see that peace is worth fighting for. Lyra hesitated, pulling her hands back. But I don't have all the information. I don't know exactly what my father is planning. I can't just accuse him without proof. Alex thought for a moment, his mind racing with possibilities. Don't need all the answers right away. We just need to get close. We need to find out what he's doing and then expose it. We don't have to do it alone. You have allies, people who care about you and want peace as much as we do. We can work together." Lyra looked up at him, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "You really think it's possible?" "I do," Alex said, his voice steady. "We just have to be careful. If your father has allies, they'll be watching every move we make. We'll have to work in secret, gathering the evidence we need without raising suspicion." Lyra nodded slowly, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I've always been careful, Alex, but this feels like something bigger than me. I don't know if I'm ready to go up against my father." Alex reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder, offering her the comfort she desperately needed. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm here for you. And no matter what happens, we'll figure it out together." For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. She just stood there, lost in her thoughts. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above. A whisper, "What if we fail?" Alex's heart went out to her, and we keep trying. As long as we have each other, we can face whatever comes our way. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes filled with determination. "You're right. I can't sit back and watch everything we've worked for slip away. I'll do whatever it takes." Alex smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. That's all I needed to hear. Lyra gave him a small, uncertain smile. "I'm glad. You're here with me, Alex. I don't know what I'd do without you." Alex squeezed her shoulder gently. "You don't have to find out. We're in this together." As they stood there, the weight of their decision hanging between them, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in Lyra. She had more strength than she gave herself credit for. Together, they would face the challenge ahead, no matter how difficult it might be. But as the moment passed and they began to make their plans, neither of them could shake the feeling that the road ahead would be much harder than either of them had anticipated. The days after their conversation were filled with tension as Alex and Lyra worked in secret to uncover the truth behind her father's actions. They knew that time was running out. The peace talks were getting more fragile with every passing moment. Lyra's father was a powerful man, and every move he made seemed calculated to keep the war between the humans and Dare alive. The palace was a maze of corridors and rooms, and Alex felt like a ghost as he moved through them, trying to gather any information that could help them. Lyra had been meeting with trusted allies, trying to learn more about her father's plans. But it was clear that their time was limited. They had to act quickly. One evening, after another long day of surveillance and whispers in the shadows, Alex met Lyra in their secret meeting place, a small, quiet room on the edge of the palace. She looked tired, her eyes dark with worry, but there was a fire in her gaze, a determination that had only grown stronger in the past few days. "Do you have anything?" Alex asked, his voice low as he stepped inside. Lyra shook her head, her shoulders slumping. "Nothing concrete. My father's meetings are all behind closed doors. Even the people I trust don't know what he's planning. But I can feel it, Alex. He's going to do something drastic. And soon." Alex took a deep breath, the weight of their mission pressing on him. "We don't have much time. The longer we wait, the more power he gains. We need to expose him before he can strike." Lyra nodded, her eyes meeting his. "I know, but every step we take feels like we're walking on a tightrope. If we make the wrong move, we could lose everything. The peace talks, our people, and ... She trailed off, and Alex saw the fear in her eyes. It wasn't just fear for the peace talks anymore. Get what it was, fear for herself, for her family, and for what would happen if they failed. "Lyra, listen to me," Alex said, stepping closer. "We're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. No matter what happens, we have to keep going. Can't let your father destroy everything we've worked for." She looked up at him, her face softening. "I know, but I'm scared, Alex. What if I'm making a huge mistake? What if I can't stop him?" Alex placed a hand on her shoulder, trying to reassure her. "You're stronger than you think. No, and you're not alone in this. We'll find a way, together." For a moment, Lyra didn't speak. She just stood there, taking in his words. Then, with a deep breath, she nodded. "You're right," she said quietly. "We have to do this. Can't turn back now." Just then, a loud knock on the door startled them both. Alex's hand instinctively moved to the blaster at his side, but Lyra stopped him with a glance. "Stay calm. she whispered. The door opened slightly, and a shadowed figure stepped inside. It was a dare soldier, a man Lyra had trusted for years. His name was Varen, and he had been one of her father's most loyal followers. But now, as he stepped into the room, his face was grim. "Lyra," he said, his voice low. "There's no time. Your father has ordered the final step. He's about to make his move." Lyra's heart raced. "What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice tight with fear. Varen looked around quickly, making sure no one was listening. "Your father has already made deals with other factions. They're preparing to launch an attack. A full-scale war against the humans. Happening tonight." Alex's heart dropped. "Are you sure?" Varen nodded, his face pale. "I've seen the orders myself. I've tried to warn you, Lyra, but now it's too late. The ships are already mobilizing." Lyra stepped back, her face pale. "Oh no, this can't be happening. He's really going through with it." Varen hesitated. "There's no turning back now. Your father is determined to make the Dare the dominant power. He believes the humans will never accept them. He's prepared to sacrifice everything for this war." Alex's mind raced. This was it. This was the moment they had feared, the moment where everything came crashing down. But there was still a chance. He still had time to stop it. "Where are the ships?" Alex asked, his voice sharp with urgency. Varen hesitated. "They're stationed near the eastern border. If you leave now, you might be able to stop them before they launch." Lyra's eyes widened, and for the first time, Alex saw a flicker of hope. "We can still stop this," she whispered. "We can still save everything." But just as Alex was about to speak, another figure appeared in the doorway, a soldier, this one not from their group. He moved quickly, aiming a blaster directly at Varen. "You've betrayed us," the soldier said coldly. Lyra gasped. "Varen, no, you're one of us." Varen's face twisted with guilt, but he didn't have time to explain. The soldier fired, and in the blink of an eye, Varen fell to the ground. Alex moved fast, pulling Lyra behind him. "Get down," he shouted. They both hit the ground, the sound of blaster fire echoing in the small room. The soldier advanced. But before he could fire again, Alex took action, firing back. The soldier collapsed, and the room fell silent. But the moment was fleeting. Lyra's face was pale, her hands trembling as she stared at the fallen body of the man she had trusted. "I had no choice," Varen had whispered before he fell. "It's the only way to protect you. ... both." Lyra's heart ached as she realized the true cost of their mission. Varen had given everything, including his life, to help them. Even though it meant betraying his own people, Alex turned to her, his voice filled with determination. "We have to keep going. It's not over yet." Lyra nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "For Varen," she whispered, her voice shaking. "We can't let his sacrifice be in vain." And so, with a new sense of purpose, Alex and Lyra prepared to face whatever came next. The fight was far from over, but together they would face it head-on. The night was dark, but the air was thick with tension. The time had come. The stakes had never been higher. Alex and Lyra stood at the edge of the palace grounds, looking out over the vast fields that stretched before them. Somewhere in the distance, the enemy ships were waiting, ready to launch an attack that could destroy everything they had worked so hard to build. Alex's heart was pounding, his mind racing with thoughts of what was at stake. This wasn't just about saving the peace talks anymore. It was about saving lives. It was about stopping a war before it even started. But to do that, they had to act fast. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. Lyra stood beside him, her face pale but determined. She had changed in the last few days, the weight of her family's betrayal weighing heavily on her. But despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, she had found a strength she never knew she had. And now, Alex could see it in her eyes. She wasn't the same woman who had first walked into his life, unsure of where she belonged. Now, she was ready to fight for what she believed in. "You sure about this?" Alex asked, his voice low, his eyes meeting hers. Once we go in, there's no turning back. Lyra nodded, her jaw set with determination. I don't have a choice anymore. I can't let my father tear apart everything we've worked for. I can't let him destroy peace, destroy everything. Alex placed a hand on her shoulder, and let's do it, together. They shared a brief moment of silence before they turned toward the path that would lead them to the ships. They had learned from Varen's last words that the rogue factions' ships were stationed near the eastern border. They didn't know how much time they had left, but they were both willing to risk everything to stop the attack as they made their way through the palace grounds. Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. Every step felt like it could be their last. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and yet they were driven by something stronger than fear, the desire to protect the future. To protect peace, they moved quickly, keeping to the shadows, careful not to alert anyone to their presence. Lyra led the way, her steps silent but sure. Alex followed closely behind, his hand resting on the blaster at his side, ready for whatever might come next. When they reached the eastern border, they saw the ships. They were enormous, towering above them like metal giants in the night. There were dozens of them lined up and ready to launch. The rogue faction had gathered every ship they could, preparing for an all-out assault on the human fleet. Lyra's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the ships. This was it. This was what her father had been planning, what he had been working for all along. But she wouldn't let him win. She couldn't. We need to get inside, Alex said, his voice tense. If we can disable the launch sequence, we might be able to stop the attack. Lyra nodded. I know a way in. Follow me. She led him toward the side of the nearest ship, where a small maintenance door was hidden behind a row of crates. It was a risky move, but it was their only chance. They slipped inside without a sound, moving through the darkened corridors of the ship. The air was heavy, filled with the hum of the engines and the distant sounds of soldiers moving around them. Lyra moved quickly, her eyes scanning the area as she led them toward the control room. Alex stayed close, his hand never far from his weapon. They couldn't afford to make a mistake now. They had to get to the controls and shut down the ships before they could launch. When they finally reached the control room, they found it empty. The room was filled with blinking lights and monitors, but there were no guards, no soldiers. It was the perfect opportunity. Lyra quickly moved to the console, her fingers flying over the keys as she accessed the system. I can disable the launch sequence, she said, her voice steady, but I'll need a few minutes. Alex nodded, standing guard near the door. He knew they didn't have much time. The longer they stayed in the control room, the more likely they were to be discovered. Kept his eyes on the monitors, watching for any signs of movement. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. Alex's heart raced as he motioned for Lyra to hurry. She worked faster, her fingers moving with precision as she entered the final commands. Just as the door began to open, Lyra slammed her hand on the final button. Done, she exclaimed, her voice filled with relief. Alex moved quickly, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the back exit. They had done it. The ships would not launch. But as they made their way back through the dark corridors, the sound of alarms suddenly blared through the ship. The mission was far from over. Someone had found them. We need to go now, Alex shouted. They ran, their footsteps echoing in the ship as they tried to escape before the soldiers arrived. Alex's heart was pounding in his chest, but there was no turning back. They had done what they came to do, but now they had to survive. As they reached the outer doors, they saw the soldiers closing in. There was no way out. But Alex wasn't going to let them take Lyra. We're not done yet, Alex said, his voice filled with resolve. We're getting out of here. With a swift motion, Alex pulled Lyra to the side, finding cover behind a stack of crates. The soldiers would be close, but they had one final chance to escape. Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. Alex smiled, his heart steady. No need to thank me. We're in this together. And together, they would face whatever came next. The fight was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, they had a Real chance at victory?